The Graphic Histories Podcast.
I got bit by a radioactive bug. I tried an experimental drug. Went up for a stroll on a gamma testing range. I found an enchanted hurricane. I made a serum that made me small. I modified the serum so it would make me tall. Radioactive isotope in my eyes. Dying alien helped me accessorize. I gained the proportion and strength of a spider. Now I'm invincible and I can fly. I lost my sight, my other senses were heightened. I'm gonna put on my pajamas and go fight crime.
Hey there, and welcome to the Graphic Histories Podcast. My name is André, your podcast host. Big thanks to Uka the Mock for our theme song, Superpowers. And big thanks to you, gentle listener, for tuning in once again to another fun-filled, ball-blasting, butt-destroying, eye-gouging, bone-shattering edition of our show. And by that, I mean an intellectual conversation about comics and art and all that great stuff with someone making said art, that person being Jason Strutz, who is a graphic artist, done a lot of really cool comic work, some for Charlie Band over at Full Moon Pictures. If you're familiar with B-movies, he did some comic book versions of some of those characters and creators, and is working on his own series called The Returned, a webcomic that will be eventually kickstarted into a physical edition. And when that comes out, he will be on Kickstarter, so about a week from now when you're hearing this. So make sure to listen in. He does give some tips on how you can follow the updates and check out that comic. It's really cool. It's a medieval story involving zombies, but it's really at its heart a story about family. And we talk about how that connects to himself and his family, and where he got some inspiration from that story from. And it's a really unique, cool, beautifully drawn book with a really unique art style. So you should check it out and head over and do all that. Hopefully things are going well with you in your life. My life is chugging along just fine. As I mentioned last few episodes, I returned from our trip. Now I've just been kind of chugging along, catching up with work and everything else, and it's been a bit of a slog, but I'm getting there, man. I'm getting there. You know, had a little bit of wrestling already since I got back, which was nice. Good crowd over in Moncton, great show. And things are going well, you know. Kicking around, doing the things here in town. People often tell me that I'm everywhere. It's because I do a lot of things, but there are a lot of things that I like and I, turn into jobs. I host movie nights, I host trivia, I host vinyl and board game nights, I host trivia for another place, acting, wrestling, my own business. There's a lot of irons and a lot of fires. And it's just because I love all this stuff. And it's all stuff I want to happen in my town, stuff I really enjoy doing, and stuff I've managed to monetize in a manner that, helps supplement my income and give me some walking around money, as I call it. And I really, really love it. I think it's my passion is comics, it's art, it's being involved with the community, it's having fun, it's all that good stuff. And thankfully there's a lot of it around, so I'm lucky. Very lucky. Another side gig is this show, which I've been doing since 2020, meaning, we're in our fifth year now, which is insane to me, but it's been chugging along really well. And the last bastion of interviews we've had, I've really, really enjoyed, including this one. It's a great chat and a great talk. So let's listen to it now. Here it is, my conversation with Jason Strutz.
Pretty good.
Excellent. Oh yes, a fellow bearded bald man with glasses.
Yeah. It's a look. It's a look. It's my only look. That's all I got.
I often say that. I say once you go bald, that's your you get your ticket to grow a beard, and then hopefully you can grow a decent
you gotta have something. You gotta grow some sort of hair. Mm-hmm. Whatever you want to do, but
people are like,
I don't want to shave.
No,
shave enough.
God no. People ask me like, when was the last time you shaved your beard? I'm like, oh God, probably, around the same time I went bald, which would be like, 15 years ago. It's like, I said it, honestly, I just look like a big thumb if I get rid of it. It just like, you
need something to grab onto, something to like anchor the face. We need an anchor.
I like that face anchor. That's good.
A face anchor.
So, where are you called in from?
Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Oh, Michigan, eh?
I
I
think
don't know how many Michiganers I've.
California.
Yeah,
Is that? Yeah.
yeah,
Cool.
right on. Oh no, me? No, no,
Yeah.
I'm in Nova Scotia, Canada.
Oh no, it's in Canada. Yes, yes, that's
Yes,
right.
way up
That's
there. I
right.
was going to say not in California, thank God. Seems like they're having
Yeah.
a slew of problems right now.
All sorts, all sorts.
Are you from Michigan originally?
No, no. Originally from Buffalo, New York,
Oh, okay.
and moved around a lot. Yeah, we can go through that too. But yeah,
Sure.
moved around a bunch for my following my wife around for school and work,
Hmm.
and work at home, art dad,
Oh, nice.
and kids coming up on being a real teen soon. So
Oh, that's got to be fun. My God. I have no children, but I watch a lot of my. I'm at the age now. I'm 39. I'll be 40 this year. Where like a lot of my friends the last few years decided if we're gonna have kids, now's the time, and then they all did
yeah,
at once. So now there's just a ton of kids running around,
that's
and I'm
that
like the one
happens.
guy who's like, "Hey, anybody want to go do anything?" And everyone's like either tired or can't, and it's just like,
Yeah,
well,
it's a rough time to be a friend of a rough to be a friends of new parents.
yeah. Well, you also
It's
don't
like
want to be
there's
like the oh, woe is me. I get to go
oh
watch
yeah,
a
no, no, no,
concert and you can't.
absolutely.
But
Absolutely. But yeah, it's tough. I always tell people who have kids, friends who are having kids, I'm like, I'm cool. Like
mm,
we can hang out whenever you want to hang out. You got some time, let me know.
mm.
I'll let you know about the biggest stuff, but we're still friends in a year and a half when you come out of this.
Oh, well, that's gentle
Bye.
of you. Yeah, I never had
I've
that
been there.
conversation. I guess I am that person. It still happens, but it's just like every once in a while, you just get a random like, "Hey, I got a free weekend." It's like tonight, what are you doing? It's like Jesus, man. I guess
Mhm.
that's the haphazard world of parenting. It's like you never have a
That is kind of it.
perfect
Like, oh, I
plan.
have the night. Like, I got to put something together because planning anything in advance is a
Yeah,
crapshoot.
yeah. I found that when my wife and I got married, we did no children at the wedding,
Mhm.
and I felt like that was more divisive than I thought it would be for some family
Hmm.
members. It was like, oh, they just didn't come, and it's like you can't find a sitter for a couple hours,
Yeah, no.
like or a family member or somebody nearby that could look after. It was almost like
Hmm.
their form of protest to say they disagreed with this was just to not come, which is
Hey,
fine, whatever. Hey,
they don't get dinner.
that's right.
They don't get to go dancing.
That's right. Exactly. Their
Everybody
loss.
makes their decisions.
Well, growing up in Buffalo, which is a lot closer to me, so I'm more familiar
Yeah,
with
yeah,
Buffalo
yeah.
than Michigan. Were comics a part of childhood? Was that like when did they enter your sphere?
Yeah, comics were always part of my childhood, from, around the Jim Lee X-Men 1
Ah,
time.
mm-hmm.
So a little bit before that, caught a couple Jim Lee issues before the switch over to adjectiveless X-Men. Uh, but yeah, that was one of my first comics, and Mark Bagley on Amazing Spider-Man. So like 90, 91,
Mm-hmm.
I believe. It's kind of my first ones, and I got my first couple comics at a Walden Books in the mall from a gift card that I got for a birthday or Christmas or something.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't hear Bagley talked about as much as I talk about him a lot of the show because like we're
Mhm.
probably close to the same age range. I
Yeah.
uh
43.
oh, I'm pretty close, yeah. So I like that was some of my seminal first comics for those
Oh yeah.
Bagley Spider-Man comics and
Hmm.
I mean I followed this whole career all the way through. I talked to a guy in the show one time that mentioned that he like lives near him and he's met him a few times and I was like I was like I'd love to talk to him, but I don't think the guy knows him that well.
Yeah, and
But
he's a humble, from all appearances, a humble guy. I've met him, briefly once,
mhm.
but like he's not somebody that does the interview circuits, does hot takes on Twitter,
Yeah.
or whatever. Blue Sky. Let's go with Blue Sky.
Yeah.
Hot takes on Blue Sky. Uh, so like he's kind of stayed out of that, but has continued to have steady work, and
Yeah.
probably as much as he wants.
Well, he's like a
Which
workhorse
is
in a
fun to
way.
see. Like a guy, an artist, just doing work and not not getting in trouble. So
Yeah,
that's
that
fun to
that is
see.
nice. That is nice. Yeah, yeah, that seems to be a running theme in the last few years. And not, deservedly so for those, of course, who are getting
Yes, please.
pulled
Yeah,
into the
I want to
spotlight
know.
that deserve it. But
I'll
it's
never know otherwise.
it's kind of alarming. And I mean, when the Neil Gaiman thing came out, I was kind of talking to someone, and similarly, I had a conversation with someone a little while before that about. It was like Dave Grohl or something when he had like a love child that came out of nowhere. And it
Mhm.
was like, I don't know if we need to look to these celebrities for being paragons of
Yeah,
normal of
yeah,
goodness. Like if
yeah.
we're looking, I mean, if you look around people in your own life, I'm sure there are many examples of people that are living good lives and not hurting their loved ones or taking advantage of their position or anything like that. But it seems like we always look to celebrities for some reason, and they're like in
Hmm.
the worst possible position to hold on to any kind of. I mean, some do. I'm not throwing them all under the bus, but
Oh yeah,
there are a
yeah,
few that seem to. They're in the worst position to hold on to their moral code, as it were. And it seems like we're always really disappointed when one of them like turns out to be having an affair, or, you know, anything insane
yeah.
stuff
That
like the Neil Gaiman stuff. It's like, well,
Yeah, I definitely like to draw a line between a large gulf between
oh yes, oh 100%
Dave
yes.
Grohl and Neil Gaiman,
Yeah, I meant in a whole of all
absolutely.
celebrities.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
the Gaiman thing
yeah.
is even more
It's tough to
troublesome.
invest
Well, just
that.
because he like it's like if you well, it's very similar to like these, mega church people or whatever that are like, damning people for being gay and then get caught being gay. It's like it,
Mhm.
it seems more egregious when you're particularly actively going out of your way to tailor what your output towards or against a certain type of people. And then
Yeah, absolutely.
Damon always put out this real lovely, like, kind of vibe, this cozy sort of vibe about like acceptance and love and peace and
Hmm.
nothing that seems quite as rough as the allegations that come out. It's like it seems like more of an like if it's someone that's like a rock star or something, whatever. They live a life that's kind of insane and they don't really say like, hey, look at me, but I guess when the work seems to speak towards
Yeah,
sort of
yeah.
a cultural acceptance thing.
It's a situation to wrap your mind around.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
just not investing in the goodness of a person to enjoy an art. And
yeah.
unfortunately, after you know more about that person, it can be tough
Yeah. Well,
to enjoy that art,
everyone's.
especially for people who have any sort of personal experience with
Oh,
uh
absolutely. Yeah.
that world. And you know and I
Yeah.
I want to know about these people because they're probably not going to act that way towards me,
Hmm.
so I will never know.
Yes.
Um, this is how I know not who not to work with, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. And it feels like the studio system kind of mirrors that in a way. Like it seems like once these things come to light, those guys kind of quietly go away, depending on the level of whatever their
Yeah,
crime and in quotes was. Um, but it's just strange. It's very strange. It's especially in the comic because comics always seemed like an industry that was like our secret little fun, nerdy little
mhm.
quiet thing that was sort
I
of
think it's
like,
we end up with a lot of we're going through this period of time uh, where the comics is such a small world, but does run like on someone's name.
Mhm.
Uh, so I think it's a confluence of like being name famous
Mhm.
within a small community, uh, but you may not make the rock star money
Mhm.
that you need to maybe truly hide all of this
That's
or make it
true.
go away. It's like a
Yeah. Yeah.
weird fame fame situation in comics where it's just so small, but everybody knows everybody's name. And I don't know, I imagine most people don't have the money to try to make something really go away.
Hire a fixer or have some Hollywood
Yeah,
guy.
so
Yeah.
and there are normal people out there who also do these types of things to people,
Mm.
but we don't know their names. We'll never know
Yeah.
their names.
Yeah. Thank God. But yeah, like I do a lot of side things, and one of the things I do is I'm a professional wrestler. So
Okay, yeah.
sometimes when you do that sort of thing, people think you know everything about everyone that's involved in professional wrestling,
Oh
which is
yeah,
funny.
yeah.
It's like if I'm like, which I also do some acting on in theater. It's like I don't know every theater person in the world,
Hmm.
as much as I don't know every other professional wrestler in the world. But when like the
I
Vince
mean, you
McMahon's,
don't know personally the wrestlers you work with. You don't know
yeah,
personally the
yeah,
the people you work with in theater. Like they're
exactly.
there doing their job, and
But like when
you
the
know
Vince
them that much. But
yeah, enough to get the work done. And you
Yeah,
make
it's
friends
not.
along the way, meet them more, that's fine. But
Yeah.
like when the Vince McMahon thing came out, everyone's like, "Oh, do you think he could like, fans know him in wrestling. And like, do you think he could have done
Mhm.
that? I'm like, of everyone in the world, I think that could have done that. Yes, 100%. I think that guy could have done that. So he's a billionaire that people want stuff from. Of course he's going to like, I'm not saying of course he should, but
No,
the way he
no.
presents himself and all the other stories about him within the industry. No, none of that
Mon
surprises me in the least. So,
money and fame will mess you up.
oh, 100%. Yeah, nobody gets out
And that's
normal.
big communities and small communities.
Oh, yes. Yeah,
So that
yeah,
starts to go to the head, go to your head, then
yeah,
you gotta have a watch out for that.
for sure. Well, guys, jumping back to your personal story, the so did you start drawing right off of the get-go? Start making your own comics off of
Yeah,
that
so
love
I've
of the.
I've been drawing for forever.
Mhm.
Uh, I'm yeah, have always done that. I think back in kindergarten they did the like draw a face, and you were I don't know, 80s education. You were scored on how many features you put on this face, and like I
Oh,
put all sorts of stuff on the face. So yeah, this was drawing has been for forever. Enjoyed reading comics a lot. Um, early mid 90s. I think what kind of kicked me off of like superhero Marvel stuff in my teens was the like Age of Apocalypse story where I had to buy,
mm,
7 issues a month to figure
yeah,
out what was going on.
yeah.
Little did I know, reading it, 20 years later, I was like, oh, there is no real cohesive story here.
I
So
found that when I tried to go
every,
back and do the
yeah,
Spider-Man clone saga, I was like, oh yes, no, there
yeah.
is.
You're
I
like,
didn't need
oh,
to read all of this.
yeah, you sold this as, oh, I have to read all of these things to understand the issue, but you could read all of it together. You still, uh, is it understandable? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think the people creating it were reading all the other books and understanding everything
Yeah,
either.
I think
So
uh, I think I was very reasonably confused about what was going on, as everyone else was.
yeah, thank God the industry stopped doing that sort of thing. Hey, that drives
So,
me
but then
nuts.
then I was reading more graphic novels. I think my first one was reading The Crow. That
Oh, nice.
was a big thing. So watching the movie, reading the book, discovering that afterwards, and finding books that were like discrete stories of like a beginning and an end, and all that kind of was what I moved towards.
So was it the
Um,
shift in the genre type, like or as far as the way it was shown to you as like given a definitive story, or was it like the fact that it was a more gothic sort of kind of story
I
that
mean,
that
I
resonated with
definitely,
you?
yeah, definitely resonated with the gothic,
Hmm.
listening to The Cure
Yeah.
and all that. So the story definitely got me. And later, like I came to realize, I liked stories that end,
Hmm.
uh, and reading a discrete book as
Mm.
opposed to, oh, this is going to go on forever and ever,
Yeah.
and ever. They're fun. I read them still, but I know what to expect from that type of story.
Yeah.
Um, but definitely gravitated towards those, towards a graphic novel, like
Yeah.
read a book and then read a whole different book.
Yeah.
Um, so, moving from that to blankets and just kind of any of the um, indie graphic novel scene. Uh,
Yeah.
was enjoying that, getting those out of the library and all that through my college years, and kind of after that was working in some illustration and uh, doing graphic design, working at sign companies.
Hey,
So
I
there's
same thing for me.
Oh yeah, so
I'm a
there's
graphic
probably
designer,
about
worked at a sign company for like a decade.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yep. I worked at a couple for about 12 years, um, where I went to college in Rochester, New York at
Hmm.
RIT, uh, about an hour away from Buffalo, and then went there for illustration, which is kind of art school with a little bit of business. So their hope was like you could make some money out of it.
Was that like your
Um,
parents' hope or like your hope or just their hope
I
in
mean,
general, just the artists?
also my hope,
Yeah.
I think I had a real problem with kind of making my own direction with
Hmm.
things.
Yeah.
Like I I'm a fine artist, but I'm not a fine artist. Where like you can sit me in front of a canvas and say paint what's in your heart. You'd be like, I don't know. But the illustration courses were like, oh, here's a brief. Here's what we're doing. Here's the article.
Hmm.
Come up with, an illustration. Solve that problem. I need a problem before I can sit down to make something. Tell me to solve a problem. That's what I'm there for. If you tell me to follow my heart, I'm gonna perseverate and try to think about what I'm feeling and what I'm supposed to paint, and that's tough for me.
You require direction of some kind.
Yeah, I require some direction in making art. So I think that illustration spoke to me, and I did want to make that, make that make illustration the career. So that, as opposed to I make one painting and I sell it once, I would prefer to make books and help that tell a story, and be able to continue to sell that to everybody. That one painting, you sell for X number of dollars, 20 to 500 million, but X number of dollars and you're done. And one person sees it, and maybe it's on a website. I'd rather have it go out to everybody. Anybody who wants to have that piece of art, you can have some piece of that art, be it in a book or a magazine, a comic.
So I'm
things
judging
like that.
from this that you're a big fan of NFTs. No, I'm kidding. Think I'm reading the room correctly. It's funny when you mentioned like direction, because obviously as a graphic designer too, I'm sure you're very familiar with the the customer when trying to appease someone with what they want when they don't usually know what they want, and also what works and they don't really know either.
Yeah, it's a lot of it's interpreting. You sit down with them, you talk about what they are thinking, and you try to solve that problem. Like and that results in there being, I don't know, 50 or 60 landscaping logos running around New York and North Carolina. So
oh yes, oh god, yes.
there's some proud Strutz
Designers.
landscaping logos out there.
Oh, lovely.
You'll
One of
never know.
my favorite thing about that whole process is it's often like when someone asks me to do a logo for them, like I do mostly freelance stuff now, but
Mhm.
it's like, well, here's 6 options. Here's the first one that is I really like. Second one that is different, but I really like. Third one, some combination of those two. Fourth one is something
Yep.
wildly out of left field. Fifth one is also something kind of crazy. Sixth one is just something I don't care about, but here's your last option because I just want to throw something in there to give you options.
Yeah.
And 78 to 50 or to 80%, it's number 6 they go with, and I'm like, why? Like, why?
Yeah.
Like, surely look at all these better options, but they're like, no, the 6 is it. I'm like, oh, okay.
All right. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure thing.
Yeah.
You save those other 5 and rework them into the next one.
That's true. Cannibalize them for the next guy. That's funny.
But yeah, like that stuff is fun. I like that. So I worked in sign shops for a long time doing the design, but also creating. I was working in very small shops, like 2 owners and me. So I'm designing, I'm making, I'm installing, I'm hanging off of buildings. That's no fun.
Especially in like the freezing cold days when you have to do some window decal somewhere and it's like -10 outside and you're like, what the hell
it's rough.
am I doing?
Yeah.
But
now it doesn't stick very well at that point.
No, it does not. But they need it today because they left it to the last minute.
So I was working on that as well as just freelance art career. My wife was going through school, so she's was getting her master's in Rochester, and then we moved to North Carolina around Chapel Hill, and worked at another sign shop while she was doing doctorate school at UNC. So there I met my friend Jeremy Whitley, who was a writer and looking to write comics. So we started to kind of work on some ideas together.
Nice.
So we had a little series called The Order of Dagonet, which is all about the entertainment knights of England. So the world of fairy invades. Basically, all the Midsummer Night's Dream characters invade England, and the people who are supposed to stop them are this order of knights who are now all the entertainment knights. So you had an Ian McKellen and
I get it.
Osborne.
That is very clever.
So like
I
pop culture nights, so
yes,
writers and rock stars and things like that, and actors who have all been put in this order of knights, and they're supposed to be the ones who uh, are supposed to fight the fairy realm.
that is a great idea.
So we started with that, and I was doing a lot of airbrush and colored pencil and very mixed media uh, type stories. So we put out a bunch of issues of that. We had that came out briefly through Action Lab, and it's kind of there when that started when it was not a mess. So we don't need to work through that. But um, he Jeremy went on to write a couple other titles there, and is writing all sorts of things now. Does graphic novels. Uh, Worked on the wrote the Unstoppable Wasp series for Marvel and a few other things there, and has a bunch of great graphic novels out right now. Uh, so we started working together, um, and it's just kind of kept going from there. I know I went to like a show called Heroes Con in North Carolina, kind of before I had started really working in comics,
Mhm.
um, or really thinking that I could work in comics. I went there and walked around and I was like, oh, like this is like an art fair that I think I could make money at, that I think I could do well at. Like I could go to your city's, your town's art fair, and some of it just seems inaccessible to me, uh, in that, I have to do a ton of watercolors. I have to have the
Mhm.
prints. I have to do the art show circuit.
Yeah.
And tough stuff that I liked to draw, monsters and all that just wasn't present at art fairs at that time. It's a little more now, um, but just was not present at art fairs this time. But I went to this comic convention, my first one, and I said, "Oh, like this is familiar. This seems like something that I could do." So started working in comics, started doing those Comic Cons and all that, and yeah, just kind of fell in love with that kind of storytelling from there. Worked with a few different writers on some small titles, some anthology stuff. I work with a publisher called Red Stylo Media, run by Enrica Jang, who I met her in Baltimore, and we started working on she was finishing up a Poe story anthology called Poe Twisted, which is taking all Poe stories but with a twist. So
Cool.
sci-fi, comedy, crime stuff.
Mhm.
So some short stories, and she had some spots for some pinups in there because she was at the end of her process. But we met in Baltimore and really hit it off, just sitting next to each other at the show.
It's amazing how many connections you make with folks at cons
Oh
just sitting
yeah,
at a table, and they're just
yeah.
meeting people or at
So it's
the,
gonna be always be nice to the people that are next to you because you
yeah.
don't know what's gonna happen. So Enrica and I have worked on a bunch of books together. We did later a Poe graphic novel based on the Cask of Amontillado.
Nice.
So we did the whole Poe story is kind of a single issue, and then we did like four or five issues that continued that story. So she was writing new material based on that Poe short story.
Oh, it's like continuing the story on beyond the initial story.
Yeah,
Interesting.
and it's a good story to do so because there's a lot of loose threads in that
Mhm.
short story. Short stories, but yeah, there's a lot of like we don't know why everybody's mad at each other. We don't know why this guy is bricking his
Yeah.
his supposed friend up in the wall of his basement.
Uh,
You never really know why, so we go and answer some of those questions. Uh, so we were worked on that and finished that as a graphic novel, and I'm still giving out to people today.
nice.
And then she ended up working as the director of the Poe House and Museum in Baltimore.
Oh, so her love of Poe was a much deeper thing than just
So
his
yeah,
love
so
for
she
comics.
she took that and ran with that, and it didn't hurt that she had written her own Poe graphic novel. So now I do a bunch of work for the museum in Baltimore,
Oh,
and
wow.
I do all their illustration and graphic design for their events and all that. So yeah, be nice to the people that sit next to you at Comic Cons. because you
Were,
never know.
were you like were you a Poe fan before this sort of
Oh
project
yeah,
began?
definitely, definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Really it fits in the Crow, fits in the Cure thing.
That's
But
fair,
yeah,
yeah.
definitely a Poe fan. So exciting to continue working on that. And this is our ninth year working on stuff together.
Mm.
So we put together a Poe festival every year that
Oh wow.
keeps getting bigger. And so I'm in. You want to find me? I'm in Baltimore the first weekend of October every year for the festival.
Poe Festival. That sounds really cool.
There
I would
working
love
on
that. I
it.
think walking around seeing little, Black Cat
Yeah.
dolls and Raven dolls and all the
Yeah,
other fun
we have
stuff.
a an art artists have tables, but they're also doing performances and music, theater performance and music performance throughout the weekend, and all these
That's
kind of
cool.
outdoor stages around the museum and everything, and a bunch of other fancy events that I'm lucky enough to get to go to.
That is super cool. Yeah, Poe's interesting to me because it's like one of those. Do you watch Doctor Who? Have you ever watched Doctor Who?
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's that episode where like you meet Van Gogh, and then he takes him to the future and
Oh,
shows Van Gogh what his life, what his art
beautiful.
has. Yeah, I agree. And
Very, very teary ending
oh,
for
I
me.
agree. Yeah, no, I was like in tears watching it. As anyone that does
Oh yeah,
art to see to get a
yeah.
chance to go and see that you're remembered for something, especially a guy that was tortured as he was. Poe's another one that sort of fits into that little bracket with me. That's like a
Mhm.
guy that like seemingly kind of unless he died of not rabies, but exposure or something on a part. You would know better
It,
than me. Yeah, yeah.
there's theories.
Yes.
We did a little series of posters about it, but
Oh, yes.
he may have been kidnapped and uh, drunk and drugged to do voting
Oh.
schemes.
Oh,
So
okay.
they used this was a thing they used to do
Yeah.
it. They would kidnap people off the street, get them drunk, and send them into polling places to vote for a person, drag them back out, change their clothes, take them to another polling place to vote for whoever paid for this service. I don't know.
Wow.
So yeah, so he
Wow.
the lead that the leading theory is that he was kidnapped and forced to vote until he could no longer stand.
Wow.
Like they would just keep drugging you, keep getting you drunk,
That's
and
so wild because
eventually,
it's like such a literary giant. Not at the time, I guess, but now just to know that like how
yeah, it's just
seemingly
such
mundane
a
of a
weird end.
death. Yeah, I know.
A weird
Like,
end. Yeah, because he shows up, in the gutter with clothes that are not the type of clothes he would normally wear, like
mm,
a blouse and like pantaloons, short pantaloons and stuff. Like clothes that are not his, and deliriously drunk,
yeah,
which he, by all accounts, did enjoy drinking, but not
yes,
necessarily
yeah.
to
It
that extent.
it may have exacerbated the fact that he may have been drunk already and then forced into a
Yeah,
situation where
yeah,
they
yeah.
kept drinking him.
There's probably
Uh,
a lot of confluent events there,
I
but
mean, sure you're probably familiar with the film The Pale Blue Eye. Did you see that?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I
absolutely.
really dug that. I thought it
Hmm.
was very, very well done. I like the director of that film quite a bit, but I
Yeah.
was surprised how good that movie was, and also kind of made me more interested in learning a little more about his back history. Because you like all these guys that you read the books, you get a general understanding of what you read in some bio in the back of some book when you were
Hmm.
younger, or you saw some like those illustrated classics thing where they sort of tell you some history of them as well when you're a kid, and that just sort of sits in your brain as being where they came from and what they did, and you don't go much deeper. But like him and Lovecraft and all those other guys, like there's enough interesting, you know, I guess there's a part like any artist, there's a soft spot in my heart for people that create these staggering forms of art that everybody
Hmm.
loves, but didn't know about it and died in obscurity, and then it became a
Yeah,
big thing
yeah.
later,
It's a tough thing.
Moby
It's a
Dick
tough
is a
thing to
prime
remember
example.
myself, I
Yeah.
guess.
One of my favorite things to bring up in conversation is that
Hmm.
Herman Melville's name is misspelled on his gravestone.
Oh man.
That's how little people knew about him or cared about him at the time
Ouch.
until,
Ouch.
what made most people consider the greatest American novel ever. It's like, well, there you go.
Hmm. Hmm.
Or like the guy that wrote the Confederacy Dunces committed suicide, and then his book won a Pulitzer after he's dead. So
Yeah.
you know, yeah. It's, as any artist, you hear these stories, and it gives you some hope that maybe someday something you created will live on far beyond you in a way that you'll never know in your current
Yeah.
perception.
Yeah. No, I have struggles with that at the moment too. With the uh putting together Kickstarters and things like that. What do I want to give away?
Yeah.
what do I want to sell? What do I want to use?
How is that to navigate? Like I've talked to quite a few people, like I've talked to people that have been through the Marvel system, DC system, then have come out the other side and are like, legends in quotes
Mhm.
that are now doing stuff for Kickstarter, and then people that got their start on Kickstarter. And it seems like the comic does pretty well across the board. Like it seems like a lot of the projects seem to go through. I've seen very few people say that they've had a bad experience using the crowdfunding for getting their
Yeah,
books out
yeah,
there.
and it's comics can be a relatively low bar of entry
Mm,
in terms of like what money you need to put this together, uh, depending on how you're making books, what kind of team you need.
mm.
Uh, but in general, it's very achievable budgets for a good idea and a well-designed Kickstarter. Like it's very achievable to gather the amount of money needed to create a book.
Yeah,
Uh, so that's a happy place. And hopefully like delivery wise, making comics does not take uh, an intense amount of time. Like it does take an intense amount of time, but it's not going to be 5 years. It's not going to
yeah.
be like by the time you're on Kickstarter, you should be close to done with whatever you're doing.
Hmm.
As general Kickstarter advice, you should be close to done with what you're doing by the time you launch a Kickstarter. And especially comics, like people know things happen, so you want to be, you know, far along the road before you
Hmm.
start collecting money. But even things that are in progress, it's going to be 6 months, a year, because you're just going to sit down and draw it, especially if you've collected, the money to do so.
Yeah.
You should be able to deliver that.
Yeah,
You
well,
know,
the
you
transparency
put
is the important
together
part.
put together a team. Yeah, definitely be transparent about it. Things happen all the time, but um, yeah, it seems like a good place to take your independent comic to Kickstarter. Because you can take it to Kickstarter, you can collect whatever money that you can, and all goes to you and goes to production of the book.
Mhm.
And a lot of the time with a lot of small publishers, you're going to be doing all that marketing work that a publisher should do. You're still going to be doing it anyway.
Mhm.
So part of that, the appeal of Kickstarter is you're going to keep all those rights. You're going to get paid whatever you can get paid. Um, and you're probably going to do all of the same work you would have to do if you were working with a publisher.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of like some of the people that I speak with that are like, have created big characters or big storylines for Marvel or DC or something, and you're like, you know, it's that's what got them on the map. But eventually, I think down the line, they kind of realize like you're not getting a piece of the big budget movie, you're not getting a piece of all that. Like you created it,
Yeah.
as a work for hire thing, which is what the
Mhm.
deal was when you signed
Yeah,
up
you
for
know
it.
the
So
deal.
it
I
sucks.
would be happy to talk to a big publisher about a small limited series, but I would know what that meant.
That's right. It's like you get
But
to play
hopefully,
in the sandbox.
there should be money that comes along with that idea of
Hmm.
like, oh, I'm giving you all this stuff. Um,
Well, it's
that's
kind of
what you're
nuts
getting that money in
too.
return for. That's what that's for.
Yeah, like I
And
spoke with Fabrice Sapolsky, who is co-creator of Spider-Man Noir, and you see and you think
Mhm.
about all of those, like those Spider-Verse books, or all those things, and all the things that came from that, all these versions of Spider-Man that aren't Spider-Man, but because they're Spider-Man, they'll never be yours. Like they're as far
Mhm.
as they could
Mhm.
be from the core thing, but because that you're playing with the pieces that are in that toy box,
Yeah.
regardless of whatever the outcome is, it's still never, So, but interesting in a way that certain characters are created and they get to sort of endure and live on, which is always nice. But
Oh yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Well, you're in the world of webcomics too, right? Like this return
Yeah.
comic
Yeah.
is,
So
yeah.
this is kind of my first uh, foray into a lot of stuff. But this started as kind of my first script that I was going to write all myself.
Mhm.
Um, so part of having a kid like is not having a very uh, concrete schedule
Mhm.
all the time, and I didn't feel it was super fair to advertise myself as a comic artist that will get your job done by X date because stuff can happen.
Yeah.
Um, and like, dealing with a sick kid all day and then staying up all night to draw the book, and then, you know, staying up with that sick kid for the rest of the night is gonna knock you right out. So I knew I wanted to, at the very least, spare other people from being involved in that chaos, um, and be able to generate my own project and kind of work on that on my own schedule. Not feel guilty, not get people mad at me. Don't forget those emails about like, where's the stuff? Like, it's
Got
coming.
your house with a
Um,
baseball bat.
yeah, yeah. So my daughter was in half day school
Mhm.
for a couple extra years. She's in a Montessori school, so extra half days.
Nice.
But she was starting first grade in the 2019-2020 school year.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, she's going to go to school full time now. Like I should have something to work on, ready to go when she's in school all day.
What happened in
So spent
2020 to stop that?
spent 2019 like reading all the screenwriting and comic writing and storytelling books and working on this script. And this it sort of derived from doing 24-hour comic day,
Mhm.
which is a event beginning of October, uh, sort of I believe started by Scott McCloud, um, or at least perpetuated.
Mhm.
Uh, but the idea is to make a 24-page comic in 24 hours,
Wow.
written and drawn. You don't come in with a script. You don't sit down with anything. You just sit down and make a book.
Wow.
Um, so I
24
was
hours.
running.
Wow.
Yeah, so I did an event at a comic book shop I worked at North Carolina called Ultimate Comics.
Mhm.
Great place. Has a bunch of locations. Puts on a convention in North Carolina, the NC Comic Con, uh, that I was around for the inception of, and did graphic design and stuff for them. Worked in their shop and put together an event for this 24-hour comic day because it was something I wanted to try.
Mhm.
So we just put a whole bunch of tables in the shop and started at like noon on a Saturday and go to noon on a Sunday and put together a book.
Wow.
Had a great time. We had like 20 some people there. It's not a lock-in. You're not forced to stay. If you are tired and not working well anymore, please go home.
You'll find the doors have been bolted. There's no escape. We need this comic done.
Yeah. Uh, so I worked on that. But I would always tell people, think about it, have an idea, think about what you're going to do. Uh, and then your first hour or so is just kind of, writing down that story.
Yeah.
Like I would write numbers 1 through 24 and kind of write what happens on each page.
Mhm.
So I was doing that 24-hour comic day, um, and had a kid, took a few years off, and then I was um, in Grand Rapids here and wanted to continue in that 24-hour comic day. So started that up again at a shop called Comic Signal here. Uh, Again, fun place,
Mhm.
great family-run shop here, and put together 24-hour comic days there. So I did about four in a row.
Wow.
So I have planned, participated, and completed like 5 of these 24-hour comic days. So I'm like, okay, like I did that. If I can do that in 24 hours, can I do that in a year?
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I write a book and draw a book in a year? Like if I could do it in 24 hours, I'm sure I could do it in a year. But then, distractions come in.
Mhm.
But so I took one of those 24-hour comics that I really enjoyed. It was called Veil at the time. Um, Took that idea and knowing that I really liked the idea, but the 24 pages thing was really cramped.
Mhm.
There's a lot of story shoved in those 24 pages. So took that idea and worked on expanding it to a graphic novel size, which in my head was like 120 pages. Um, so worked on learning to write the script, and yeah, was planning to start drawing about March of 2020. At which point I became a stay-at-home teacher for my daughter for a while the school system figured out what they were doing. Uh, we we were home doing nothing for like a couple weeks, and I was like, we got to do something here. I got to make up something. So I
Yeah.
was trying to making gym class outside and finding online resources and making classes and trying to do something.
Ah,
Keep us both keep us both busy.
you're a good dad.
And me feeling good about what you were doing all day. So that was her first grade. So it really put a cramp in things.
Mhm.
Um, and but was continuing to work on the script. Had hired an editor to read through it and try to make sure that it made sense. All the assurances that like, okay, this is worth spending another year
Yeah,
on, another chunk of time on.
was
So
there
I
a
had an editor
spec?
read through it and continued to work on that. Um, had a full-time job for a year in 2022, working as an artist and graphic designer at a RPG game company called 2C Gaming.
Mhm.
So I did tons of illustration for them. I'd worked with them freelance, and then they started hiring people full time, uh, which I thought was a great idea because then I don't have to price out each individual
Yeah, that's the
art
toughest part of
piece
those
that
sort
I'm
of
doing for
projects. Yeah,
you.
what is one
And
dragon worth? You know,
yeah,
you're like,
you just pay me. I'm going to do so much more art for you if you
yeah,
just give me a full-time job doing art.
yeah.
And it's so much less hassle for everybody.
Yeah, because and also you have security to know that like
Yeah,
you're not going to
yeah.
be distracted trying to get other work because when this
Hmm.
work ends, you got to find more money somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a fine idea. Had a great time working there. Uh, Put out a few books. I also used Kickstarter, so I got some Kickstarter knowledge through that. Um, yeah, and then that job ended and went. I said I have this script and it needs. I have been working slowly on layouts and everything. And I'm like, okay, this is what I'm doing next. This is the next plan. Because I had cut down my freelance kind of as much as I could or wanted to through 2020 through pandemic times. So I'm like, I need to cut back on this stuff, and didn't have a lot of things to jump back into after having that full-time job for a year. I wasn't like keeping up on all the freelance things. So I was like, I don't know what to do. Oh, I know what to do. I have this book. I'm gonna do this book because I said I would do this book. Uh, So this is Returned. Turned into Returned, one of those fun book titles that like I have a list of things it could be called, and there's no way no one has called a book Returned yet, and I couldn't find any. And I said, "Oh, this is great. This is fun. I
Oh,
like
perfect.
this."
Where did
So
the
turned
the
into this.
concept kind of initially come from? Was it
Yeah.
like
So
where
the concept. This was present in the 24-hour comic version too, but it was uh, a family that looked remarkably like mine, where there's a working mother outside the house, and a dad and a kid who were home. In this case, the mom's out being a warrior, being a soldier,
Mhm.
uh, and in this case, fighting an army of zombies. But she's left the house because she has to do that, and dad and kid are back home doing their thing. He's working as a blacksmith and raising their son, and that was kind of going to be that was kind of sort of the twist in the heart of the story. Like I'm going to start in this like guts and swords and zombies opening, and uh, the mom in this case, Vale, she dies early in the book. Uh, in the graphic novel, she's dies by about page 13. Bad zombie lady for a while, and then what if her family finds her? What if they tie her to a chair and help her ghost re-inhabit her zombie body? What then? Uh, so that's kind of the hook of the book. It's a a working mother and a work at home dad, except there's zombies and evil gods and
Oh, this sounds
um,
lovely.
things you can do.
I read a bit of it before the conversation. It's really fun.
Yeah, well, thank you.
The art's beautiful, and I love your use of color. It's really really neat, and
Thank you.
yeah, it's I love. I mean, like all kind of art styles are different, and like
Mhm.
whenever reach, whenever I see one that looks different than one that I'm than anything that it comes to mind. Like, I don't, this doesn't look like anything I've seen before that I remember. It always sticks out to me, and this is definitely one of those.
Mhm.
So it's
Great,
very very
great. Thank
unique
you.
and cool project. Um,
Yeah, it's sort of a little new process for me, um, but I've really enjoyed how it works together.
what does your
Uh,
process for the art go? Are you in the
so yeah, a
digital
few
world now,
different
or?
different steps. So going back and forth between digital and work on paper.
Hmm.
So going from the script, I do all my layouts digitally using a Clip Studio Paint on the iPad and Windows here. Um, Great comic specific kind of Photoshop program.
Yeah, I kind of got locked in on Procreate, but just because
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
the one some
Oh,
suggested to
certainly.
me. I'm
Yep.
pretty used to it. I haven't tried anything
Yeah.
else yet, but I'm open to it. I just am getting.
Yeah.
I feel like once I
So,
master this one, I don't know if I have time to figure out
mhm.
another one on top of it.
Well, they're very different design wise, program design wise. Procreate is very, to me, opaque. Whenever I work in it, it's a lot of like, oh, well, like how do I touch the screen to do this?
Yeah,
What's the
that's
magic finger movements to
that's what I had to
do
learn for
this
stuff
thing?
too. Yeah, a lot of
And like I
Googling.
know if I sat down to really concentrate on it, I would know all those things.
Yeah.
But like learning it is very difficult for me.
Hmm.
Just to be like, oh, it's three for this one, but two for this one, and do a little twisty and like,
Yeah.
you know,
Even just finding how to
magic tricks.
like, I still haven't figured out how to make shapes on it yet. So that's
Mhm.
something I got to
Yeah,
do
like
is the next
there's
step.
always stuff to learn. Whereas Clip Studio is the same on Windows as it is on the iPad. So like on the iPad, it looks very insane because it has a file menu, it has an edit menu,
Hmm.
it looks like a Windows Mac program.
Okay.
It is not
It's-
really it's not really taking the tablet in its way, it's sort of shoving that PC mindset onto an iPad. And it
hmm.
works, like everything works, but it's also very discoverable and very familiar to somebody who's worked in Photoshop or
Hmm.
works in Clip Studio on a desktop or things like that. There's not like different interfaces for iPad and a
Okay.
PC. So like that, so I can work back and forth. It all goes through iCloud. I can work on a page on my iPad and then open it up on my PC, and very uh, cohesive in that sense.
That's handy. Yeah.
Uh,
That's very handy.
I'm not stuck on any one platform, but I do all the layouts digitally because I like to use that to solve the what I call the puzzle of a page. So
Hmm.
like, here's what happens on this page. How do you put that together into readable order? And that sort of puzzle is easier for me to figure out digitally because I can do a great drawing of this person. Or like, oh, I need a picture of a person from the back. Uh, and I'm like, oh, this drawing is great, but it's like 30% too big. And if I was working on paper, I got to erase it and I got to draw that perfect drawing again and I'd lose my mind. But digitally, I'll just lasso it and shrink it
Yeah.
and solve the puzzle of the page quicker than rather than like caring so much about the drawing quality.
Yes.
So I do
That
all the
is some
layouts
beauty.
digitally. I print those out 11 by 17 and then use ink wash. So a bunch of different levels of black um, to sort of paint that page, sort of working from light to dark. Um, so I went out and bought 6 jars of relish and cleaned them out and put in 6 different concentrations of ink
Oh
that I
wow.
was like being very scientific so I can
Yeah.
keep replicating this throughout the whole process. But I know like what what jar number 2 looks like versus jar number
Yeah.
5.
Wow. Okay. Very
So
interesting.
I know that. And then like the final step is like a pure black ink using like a Pentel brush pen,
Mm.
which is always my go-to inking uh, device, is an inking tool. Uh, and then bring in the pure black and bring in some pure white paint to kind of fix up anything that goes wrong. Um, and then scan that back in, and then use the do all the coloring and lettering on the computer. So that all goes back into Clip Studio. Again, I can do, because it's comic focused, like I can do all of my lettering in Clip Studio. I can do everything in one file, which is nice.
Yeah.
So like in that file, I can turn off all the layers and go right back to the sketch layer. So it's all saved in one place, which is good for my brain.
Yeah.
Um,
100%.
yeah, so going back and forth between like a physical and digital,
Okay,
just
cool.
because I was never able to get the like ink, the sort of ink look that I like uh,
Yeah.
digitally, and did a kind of worked exclusively digital through 2013 to 2018 or something, when my daughter was young, because I just didn't want to have to keep yelling at her
Yeah,
to
yeah.
don't go near that, don't touch
Yeah.
that. Oh, you knocked that over. Getting mad. Like I didn't want to deal with that. So I was working digitally so that I could have that sort of freedom. Or if she's taking a nap, I could just have my computer on my lap and work on that. And or if she wanted to draw, I would make her a new layer, and she could draw all over the page, have fun, and then I erase the layer, and I'm back to normal.
Oh, that's
Uh,
fun. That's
so it
awesome.
seemed like a good amount of flexibility, but I was never able to quite get the like texture and stuff that I really wanted from the inking
Yeah.
stage.
I was always like I thought I'd be a purist all the time, and then like until I tried it, and I was like, oh shit,
Yeah.
it's like so fast. It's so
Oh
fast.
yeah. Oh yeah.
It's like it saves you so much time getting like ink right color, like it's all in there, or ink color.
Hmm.
You draw, everything on layers. Just get rid of your sketch layers when you're framing out your page.
Yeah.
I like that the approaching it like a puzzle, like you have something to solve with getting the story in the page, with the
Yeah. Yeah. You got a 5 or 6 moments a page. What's most important, what flows into the next thing, and
I always find it interesting knowing what creators use as far as like because you'll read scripts from like I remember reading Frank Miller scripts for I think it was
mhm,
Batman The Dark Knight Returns,
yeah.
and it was like a book. Like it wasn't even like it was like reading a story. It wasn't even like laid out like a script, like a comic script or a movie script or anything.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
it's wild to kind of check into different people's processes and see how that sort of informs the
Mhm,
work, the outcome.
mhm.
As a fan of horror films and schlocky horror films, I'd be remiss not to ask you about your work with Full Moon Comics.
Oh yes, yes.
How did that come about?
Yeah, so my friend Brockton McKinney, so he's right now working on Rick and Morty books, writing
Oh,
Rick and
really?
Morty books,
Oh, awesome.
making movies, has directed a few movies and directed and written his own zombie things,
Nice.
um, and so he lives in North Carolina, and we've done a bunch of work together, and good friends. And he started working with Full Moon off some of his horror stuff. So he's written a few of those Full Moon movies.
Nice.
Um, and yeah, they were starting out this comic line, so they were looking for people, and Brockton brought me in on that project. So I did a bunch of covers for them, uh, kind of some bonkers ones that had like 20 different Full Moon characters on there, some of which I like more than others. But it is Full Moon Entertainment. That's kind of what you're signing up for.
Oh, yeah. There's something
Uh,
about those. I mean, I guess depending on what one, the Charles Band one
mm,
specifically, there's an odd
mhm.
amount of like I don't know. It's hard to describe. When you watch enough like terrible sort of movies, you're sort of like, there's something. There's some that have a little gem in them, and there's like it's
Yeah.
either the
Oh yeah.
writing, the heart, the
Absolutely.
the style. His always
Mhm.
have something. Like I remember
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
watched Castle Freak for the first time not that long ago, and
Oh
that's
yeah.
actually a surprisingly good movie.
Yeah.
I expected
No, yeah.
nothing, and I was like, this is actually a really solid movie with something to say about grief and
Mhm.
about all these other things.
Yeah. They are
Um,
not without merit.
no, and
Uh,
even like Head of the Family is kind of a fun movie. Like there's like I went to visit a friend in Toronto not too long ago. and he in Toronto they have a Vinegar Syndrome physical store
Yeah,
where you
yeah.
can go
Oh,
in and
great.
buy, which is rare. I don't know how many of those exist in the world for those boutique
I
labels,
don't know.
but
I gotta get back. I
um,
didn't know it was there.
yeah, it's in Toronto.
Been to Toronto a bunch.
Oh
Go
yeah,
back
yeah,
there.
yeah. Check it out.
Yeah.
They have a. I collect Blu-rays and movies I like,
Hmm.
or physical media records
Hmm.
and stuff. But they had a bunch of his stuff, Full Moon stuff there, and so I picked up the Doll Man ones on Blu-ray,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
the Bad Channels kind of side pull
Yep.
connector, and then the Doll Man versus Damani toys, and like there's a real fun. I didn't realize they were keeping it a cohesive. I guess because they'd done that with those movies that they'd made it. We're kind of keeping a cohesive continuity. But like I think it's fun in
Yeah.
comics that you have them
Hmm.
all running around in the same world.
Yeah, yeah. We did a Doll Man Kills the Full Moon Universe series. I did a few covers for and some interior pages and that. And that
Yeah.
was a fun project to work on. And then we did Brockton and I continued to do stuff where they were doing they did a clip show, a series of DVD clip shows of all like the gory kills from all of the movies.
Oh, really?
So there's like they called it the Deadly 10, and they did a comic around it, and then they did this series of collections of all the gory stuff from
That's
all the
awesome.
movies. But they had us do a story to sort of tie it together somehow. So we did kind of sort of ended up being like a motion comic that Brockton was writing and I was illustrating, and that they would take and add voices to and edit, you know, pan around the pictures and things like that. So we did sort of wraparound stories for all these clip show movies
Oh, that's
that they
fun.
did, and that was fun too. That was fun to see that sort of come to a different sort of life than comic page.
Yeah,
So yeah, so you can collect all the DVDs and get the full backstory.
that's awesome. Well, I look forward to checking that out. That's really
So
fun.
that was a fun series to work with there.
Yeah, I'd recently also kind of got, I guess it came right to the forefront because I picked up Arrow Video, put out this box set of, it's supposed to kind of be an homage to like when you go to a movie store in like the 90s and see
Hmm.
the weird horror movie section and pick some random thing off of that. And they're all full moon ones. What was Robot Jocks was the one I watched,
Okay, yeah.
which is just like, once again, surprisingly good. I was surprised how
Hmm.
good it was. Like, in the stop motion animation on the giant robots is actually really well done.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's yeah, it's cool. Like once again, anybody out there making art and the I mean, band obviously has a higher level of success than some of the other people that I could mention. Your Ed Woods or whatever, but like he's out there doing it, man. And one point he
yeah.
owned like Dino De Laurentiis' studio, and he was that,
He's moving.
yeah, and just making stuff. So it's cool that you had a part of that. That's really neat.
Yeah, that was fun to do.
Well,
That was fun. Yeah.
what's next for you? What is it just
Well,
chugging along on
so yeah,
return?
right now, so Returned, right now is running as a web comic. Started that in October, so that's
Hmm.
coming out Tuesdays and Thursdays at
Oh wow.
returnedcomic.com. Uh, so the whole script is written, the whole book is sketched and lettered, and now I'm working through all the final art on the story.
Okay.
So everything's planned out. It's a story in four parts. And at the end, when we get to the end at the on the webcomic of each part, I'm going to be doing a Kickstarter to print that as an installment,
Oh, cool.
kind of an
Excellent.
issue of the comic. They're all
That's a
between like 38 and 43 pages each part. So right now, the end of February is going to be the end of part one on the webcomic. And then March 1st will be the launch of the Kickstarter for Returned Part One, the print comic.
awesome.
Sort of pretty limited to the Kickstarter orders. And then once that Kickstarter is done, then I start posting Part Two
That's a great way to
on
do
the
it.
website.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So you can read it free now, uh, up around, I think page 38, 36 posted last Thursday. So 37 and 38 are coming out this week as of recording time.
Hmm.
Um, And during the month of March, you'll be able to go to Kickstarter and search Returned, and you'll find Returned Part One, where you can pledge to get a print copy, uh, a PDF copy. You can get a PDF. You can get a print copy, and from there you can also add a book plate with a cool little exclusive zombie drawing on there from me. So I'm gonna be
That's
drawing
awesome.
drawing each of those personally. Um, Different stuff on everyone. So signed, numbered, and sketched versions, and then also doing a an artist edition for each of the
Oh,
books.
cool.
So
That's
this would
beautiful.
be the black and white, just the ink art from the book. Because I take my book of originals around to shows or appearances and stuff, and everybody's like, "Oh, this looks great. This looks wonderful. It doesn't even need color." And I'm like, "Yeah, And then I show them the color, and they're like, "Oh, wow, the color is good too." But the inks can totally stand on their own,
Yeah.
and people seem to like seeing that. So I want to do an artist edition for that. So at that tier, you'll get the artist edition and uh, the color edition. And then we also have an original art tier too,
Ooh.
where you can pick one of those pages. First come, first serve. So whoever pledges first gets first pick.
Oh, that's
Uh,
great.
Kind of
That's
deal. I'm gonna
awesome.
set up a website to let everybody look at each of the pages, and then first come, first serve from there.
That's fantastic.
So that'll be the focus for the next year or so is doing all these doing the web comic, letting people read it for free, kind of taking down that barrier of, hey, give me $4 to read my story. Um, it was always kind of an awkward sell for me, and tough to see. And I just want people to read the book and enjoy it, and I'd be able to use this to show to other people to think about other freelance things, or like if I'm super happy with the direction, I'd love to have the career that is just make a graphic novel and then make another different graphic novel.
That's
Like
awesome.
I got ideas that will take me to the rest of my life. Just keep writing them down. Uh, got ideas. I would love to just make this book and then make another book.
Yeah.
Totally different book, not a continuation. This is a story. It has a beginning, has an end, and I move on to something different. I know
I
what I'm doing next if there's a next one.
yeah.
So
That's good. It's nice talking to
help
someone
me
that
make a next
has
one.
it's nice talking to someone that has that likes an ending. Everyone, it seems like the golden goal in most of comicdom is to make some massive hit that goes on forever.
Hmm. Hmm.
But it's nice artistically to know that your story, like all stories, will eventually end. And to give it a proper end and a nice
Yeah.
bookmark. You think about your favorite comics, or some of mine, and those graphic novels you mentioned, they all have very satisfying conclusions.
Yeah.
If
Yeah. I think an ending makes that kind of story.
Yeah, like if
Uh,
Breaking Bad was a weekly show that was on for 30 years, you think it'd still be so
yeah.
good,
Yeah.
or The
I like to
Sopranos, or
say uh, I was a big X-Files kid through the 90s.
oh yeah, yeah,
So watching the X-Files and
yeah, yeah,
like the slow, decrepit end of X-Files, I'm like,
yeah,
man, this should have ended after the first movie.
yeah.
That would have been a great ending.
Doggett and
Wrap it up.
Reyes were at your speed.
Fine for what it is, but man, I definitely fell off. I would have
Yeah,
I would have loved to have a definitive ending
yeah,
and just be like, oh, okay, that was a thing,
yeah.
instead of like, oh yeah, let's watch the first five
Well, that
seasons.
seems to be like
So,
it seems like that Hollywood's not interested. Well, not. I mean, they were interested. They're interested in making money more than anything. But
yeah.
the idea that like the one thing that kind of I'm enamored with, and not in a good way. I'm just sort of sort of fascinated in a macabre way. Is like this like Dexter, how like it
Hmm.
ended. It probably should have ended after the fourth season or fifth season, but then
Hmm.
like they kept going a little longer. Then they made an ending nobody liked. They made another season to undo that ending and fix that, and then
Yeah.
eventually kill him
Yeah.
off. And then that was popular enough that now they're bringing back a whole new prequel show,
Yeah.
and then they're
Young
also doing
Dexter.
a whole new show, sequel show with him not dying at the end of this, surviving
Yeah.
and
Oh
continuing
boy.
on.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah,
never got into it, but I definitely heard all of the conversations.
yeah. So
Nobody
it's
liked the lumberjack ending, apparently.
no, they
All I
gave me.
know.
Well, they should have honestly. They should have just killed him there, and or whatever. Who knows? Who am
Yeah.
I to say? I'm just a lowly
Yeah.
guy
I
that.
like an ending. Like an
Yeah.
ending.
Well, that's
But yeah, I'd
that's
like
a
to
rarity.
do this medieval book. Been deeming it a medieval horror family drama. I like to I like to say those four words and freak people out towards the end. They're like, oh yeah, medieval horror, cool. Yeah, family drama. What's that? So that's kind of my short hook for it. And then yeah, she's fighting an army of the dead. Dead by page 13. Spent some time as a bad zombie lady till her family finds her, ties her to a chair, and helps her ghost re-inhabit her zombie body.
Yeah. Well,
Then they
it's
got to escape, and then they got other differences with a lot of zombie stuff. Like there's a reason this is happening, and
yep.
there's an ending in mind.
Great.
Like
Oh no.
it's a lot of zombie stuff is like, well, we can't really explain why zombies exist, so let's just ignore that part.
Why can't
And
you? You easily can. Many movies do that.
many movies do.
There's a barrel that
Uh,
falls off a truck somewhere, and you see that.
so
That's all you need to know.
yeah, yeah.
You know,
We can
like
there's hand wavy, there's
yeah,
intentionally ignoring,
yeah.
but yeah, really trying to establish, why this thing is happening and knowing where that goes. Uh, I think is an important part of it. But yeah,
Oh, that's great.
lots of adventure and family stuff in between, and that's was a fun challenge for me, and I wanted to add that add that level of heart
Yeah,
to horror to
those are the best
I
horror.
think yeah, those horrors that you feel, the emotions that are happening.
Yeah.
Like I have fun with goofy movies, but
Oh
like the
yeah.
ones
No,
that
I agree.
stick with you are the ones that have that emotion tied to it.
Yeah, there's something at the core. Like you can
Striving
skin.
for here.
Yeah, you can put a skin across the movie or whatever you want. You can say like, okay, this is based on alien invasion, but usually the more interesting story is the one about the people trying to survive and
Yeah. Yeah.
their problems and interpersonal issues. Like I was using the movie Hereditary as an example the other day about how
Mhm.
like, that could just be a horror movie, but the deeper, exploring of the mother-daughter relationship and the crazy family stuff and all the that comes with that, like the the good and the bad, mostly the bad in that case, is like it explores like this deep, rich relationship amongst this horrible stuff. But if it was just a straight horror movie, it'd be fine atmospheric. But when you explore all that relationship stuff, that's when it gets really interesting and makes it really unique. So that's
Yeah.
really
Wanted
cool.
to add that
Awesome.
hook in. And
Well, at the
there's a
time of
few
this,
things out there that do similar stuff, but
oh.
I think my favorite one is Return of the Living Dead 3.
Ooh, I
Was a
haven't
big
seen that one
inspiration on
yet.
this.
Really? Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
big inspiration for this one. So you check that one out. Check that one out.
I've seen one and two, but I've yet to
One
get to
and two and
three.
three takes it's a left turn.
Yeah,
It
it's a
is
girl with the spikes on her face, right? That's the cover.
not a real comedy.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
but has some seeds that I took and ran with uh,
Nice. Cool.
in this book.
Nice, nice.
Less poking things through your face and fingers though.
Have you ever saw the show? It was a British show called Under the Skin, I think it was.
No, I haven't.
Is it not maybe not Under the Skin? In the Flesh? I think it might have been In the Flesh it
Hmm,
was called. And
yeah.
it's not a same concept by any stretch of the imagination, but it's like every British show, it's like they had two seasons, and then I think it got canceled before they did their final season because
Hmm,
of like so it's only like 10 or 12 episodes
mhm,
for the whole series. But
sure.
it's sort of about a world where the zombie outbreak happened, um, and then they discovered a way to make you remember who you were and make you normal again. You're
Yeah,
still
yeah.
undead, you're still a zombie, but
Hmm.
you remember your life before now after they put you through this process, and you remember all
Sure.
the horrible things you did when you were a zombie. So it follows like a kid who had committed suicide, came back as a zombie, and now he's back with his family after being,
Hmm. Oh, interesting. I'm gonna check that
and
out.
yeah, he was gay, and that was part of what led him to killing himself. And
Hmm.
he had like a relationship with a neighbor boy that was very closeted, no one knew about, and that boy died in Iraq or something. And then he comes back too because he was a zombie. Like anybody that died for
Oh
whatever
yeah.
reason come back as a
Hmm.
zombie.
Oh, that's nice. I
And
like
there's a
that.
cult that sort of comes up up around people believing that this is sort of the rapture. The start of it was when the zombies come back and all that. So it's
Okay.
unfortunately it ended. The woman from Loki that plays the TVA woman.
Okay. Yeah.
She's in Deadpool too. The black lady. That's the girl in the TVA. Deadpool Wolverine. She's in it. That was like the first thing I saw her in. But
Okay.
it was a very good show, and I highly suggest it.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
I
I'll check it out.
suggest checking out your book. So when this airs, it should be like a week away from when your Kickstarter happens. So
Okay.
everyone check that out. Go check out
Yeah.
the
So
Kickstarter.
pre-launch page will be up, and throughout March you'll be able to pledge. There's a newsletter at returnedcomic.com to sign up for. That would probably be the most that, and the Kickstarter pre-launch page would be the most accurate way to get updates on it. So newsletter at returnedcomic.com. I don't send a ton out, but with the webcomic going every month, I'm sending out a kind of issue of a PDF issue of the pages that came out that month. So just sent one out a few days ago. That was what issue 4. All the pages that came out in January. You can get through that newsletter and read it that way. And that'll keep you updated on all the launch information for that.
Awesome.
And that would be great.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, Jason. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, and I love your office there. Lots of wonderful gremlins all over the place.
Yeah, it's my
Nice stuff.
nerdy ephemera all around.
Yeah.
Yours. Well, thanks again. Have a great day.
Cool. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Thanks.
Bye-bye. There you have it, my conversation with Jason Strutz. Really cool guy. We have a lot in common. You know, he worked in the sign industry for many years, so did I, graphic design, all that stuff. But he's out there making some really cool comics. And you should go check him out. The Returned comic, you can check that out on his website. You can read all of the webcomic versions, and the Kickstarter starting soon for the printed version. And it's a hell of a ride. I think the art is very unique. I was really drawn to that. I know we talked about it in the conversation. And it's such a unique, fun look. And I think the fact that the story is informed by his own experience with his own family makes it for a worthwhile book that's well worth your attention, your time, maybe some shekels, a few shekels to back that Kickstarter. So about 1 week's time that'll be out, but you can check out on the website, which he mentions in the interview, to put your name in for the newsletter and get all the updates on when that'll be out and how that'll be out and how you can get that and all that great stuff. All right, join me next time for another scintillating conversation with another person involved in general nerddom, comics, movies, all that good stuff. Stay tuned to social media to see who that is as I announce it. But in the meantime, stay safe, have fun, read some comics, and if you're in a part of the world like me, go build a snowman. It's really good weather for it. Do you want to build a snowman? The Graphic Histories Podcast is a proud partner of the United Federation of Podcasts.